Hello and welcome to Property Question Time. I'm Stephen Galpin and this is the show where you can have your property related questions answered by our team of experts. And joining me today is Jermyn, CEO and solicitor at Woodstock Legal Services, residential landlord and tenant law specialist. Welcome to you, Carly. And Richard Murray, CEO of Eurolink, provider of VECO estate agency software. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, Stephen.
Good to have you both here. So we'll get straight on with the questioning. And Richard, you're first. I have a relatively small estate agency operation covering sales and letting. I wish to digitalise the letting side of things and wonder how far good software packages can actually assist. For instance, could the software encompass AI features that could perhaps undertake and analyse potential tenant screening? Just what are the practical limits?
Wow. As a small agent, I guess, and in the context of the question, I think we're probably looking at facial recognition. Biometrics is probably the best use case for this particular question. So I don't know, if anyone has signed up to a digital bank, for example, a Revolut or a Starling or someone like that. They use this technology very, very well to screen you, to check your ID, to check your documentation. It really is outstanding. You're literally talking to your camera in selfie mode, and it will do all the biometrics. As I said, it will check that your passport is in fact your passport, that it is in fact you in the picture, that it will check the document itself to make sure that it's not a forgery. Because what's difficult in the agency world is, we talk about, the compliance heavy industry that it is. These guys are also being asked to be experts on forged documents, which is crazy, really. I mean, getting to that sort of right to rent type identification. And again, I don't know if that's legal yet. I think they were looking into it.
Yeah.
So
April 22,
Okay, so they're starting to look into this. And I think that would be the best use of AI that I could think of, particularly in the context of tenant screening. I mean, I'm a big fan of a up and coming brand called Nucleus. Nucleus are working with brands like eBay now to manage that same process, and it's such clever tech because it's literally dealing with age verification and making sure that people aren't buying the wrong items, for example. So it could be knife crime, that sort of approach, and I just think it's that's the sort of tech, stopping kids using fake IDs to buy alcohol. There's lots of really good use cases for the technology.
Is this easy to install though for a small agency?
Well, no, and that's why it's such a difficult question. For a small agent, you'd be relying on your technology stack to do the work and make sure that they integrate those features. And we're getting there. It's just that it's relatively new tech, and it's something that we will be looking at as a sector over the next, I would say, 2 to 4 years. And then I think it'll be just commonplace. I think it'll be very, very standard use of that type of technology.
But it's the same as when the government, Carly will know about this, when the government brought in the first money laundering sort of disciplines to estate agents. You're asking perhaps young kid estate agents to start trying to make evaluations on people's wealth and where that income or financial strength came from. It's just crazy, wasn't it?
Yeah. And as lawyers, we're required to do the same.
Yeah.
So all our ID checks are now done online with biometrics. And like you say, expecting people to verify ID is a really challenging task. And I remember the document that came out with the right to rent checks. There's some little working examples that when you print it, come on. I just don't think that's a. Yeah, and like you say, they're so highly regulated. The compliance is really tough. I think if technology can take that one and make it much more safe and secure, then all the better. I think.
And we're on our way with that. But you're expecting these people to be as skilled and as highly trained as a customs operative. Someone who is letting us in the country.
If not better.
If not better, if not better. But they'll have the tech as well to, of course, assist.
Yeah.
Okay, difficult subject. Carly, I'm a small buy-to-let investor with 2 properties, one currently vacant. My letting agent telling me he has a prospective tenant but wishes to occupy the property with a dog. Previous leases I've issued have precluded pets. My agent says I should accept, as it's probably going to be that the government is about to outlaw the prohibition of pets in residential lets. Is this correct? And it doesn't seem to be possible to charge a higher deposit, as the government was recommending, to cover potential damage and cleaning and that sort of thing, as I've already set the deposit at the maximum of 5 weeks. Now, I really don't want animals in my property. Any advice, please?
If you look at the proposed reforms, it is very likely, and there's been huge campaigning around it, it's very likely that we will see it become unlawful to refuse a pet unless you have reasonable grounds for doing so. So, for example, if you're in a property that's a HMO, possibly, you might be able to refuse a pet in there if you've got others with allergies. So it comes down to the type of animal in the particular property. That's one thing to consider. It's very different if you're talking about, a nice Labrador as opposed to, I don't know, trying to not think of a wild example like a lion in a flat, but it does come down to whether that pet is suitable for that particular property. This is all when you're talking about the reforms, and I have no doubt that it's coming in. It's been huge campaigning around it, like I say. So
for or against?
I think most people for. If I'm completely honest, as a lawyer, I don't see the concern with it. We do huge amounts of claims for landlords dealing with damage to property. Very rare that I can tell you that damage is caused by an animal. It's caused by tenants. And so I think, the things you can do now to protect yourself is whilst it's not unlawful, is to get pet referencing, ask to speak to a previous landlord. Are they a good pet owner? And I know there's no science to it. I can see, but you can do your homework around it. And I think one of the positives about the reforms is they are looking at the tenant fee ban, because at the moment it's not a permitted payment to require a tenant to take out an extra insurance policy for pets, but they're looking at changing that so it goes hand in hand. They say that it's unlawful to refuse, but actually you can require a tenant to have an insurance policy in place that would encourage agents, landlords to be in control of and take the payment from the tenant. Otherwise, you're saying to a tenant, you take out a policy and they can cancel at any time. But I don't see the big concern with pets. I don't see that many claims, no.
There's quite a big building down here where they allowed it in anticipation of the law changing, and they're wishing they hadn't. They say that it's absolutely overrun with animals now. It smells like a kennel, and this is a place where flats are costing sort of anywhere between 800,000 and £3 million.
You'd expect there for it to be prohibited by the terms of the lease. So that's what as a landlord, the first thing I'd be doing is going and checking my lease and making sure that it's not prohibited.
But surely your freeholder can't issue a lease that prohibits them, and you're obliged to issue a lease, a sublease that does.
No, they can, and that would be one of your reasonable grounds for refusal, by saying, look, it's a leasehold property. My lease states that I can't allow pets, and I can't. Otherwise, I run the risk of forfeiture.
That's a good excuse. I've got a feeling they're going to wish somebody told them that before they did it. But there we are. It's very interesting. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that, Colin. That's all we've got time for in this half of the show, so join me again after the break when we'll be asking Richard and Carly more of your questions. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Property Question Time with Richard Murray and Carly Jermyn. Welcome back, guys. Richard, when purchasing real estate software packages, what sort of levels of customer support should I be looking for? Would, for instance, you normally be expected to pay an ongoing fee for support, or would the norm be to purchase an all-inclusive package, including support, charged on a monthly fee basis, rather than any upfront one-off charges?
But it's kind of a two-part question, really, because there's the kind of charging mechanism part and there's the service level part. So the charging mechanism part, most software now are SaaS products, so software as a service. They're sold on a subscription model, so you're paying an amount per month based on a certain criteria.
Is that a little bit like the sort of Microsoft system where you get Office and you pay monthly?
Correct. So the Office 365, as opposed to buying Word or Excel on its own, as we all used to do. Yeah. So it's just the world's moved to a subscription based world. Never mind business model, and most business models will follow that now in the software. In the software side of things. From a service perspective, there may be some upfront costs depending on the type of software we're talking about. So, you may have data migration costs upfront. So you're changing from a system to a system. You'd probably expect to pay a fee to have that process done for you. Training, consultancy, that sort of go live handover, that nervous time where people are just about to go live on a software.
But can I just stop you there and just interrupt? I don't talk just about your systems, but in general with software systems, and you're changing from one to another, would it be a little bit like your iPhone where you just put one next to the other, press the button and it says, do you want to copy all this over to... Is it as simple as that? Or
the short answer is no. Slightly longer answer is if you're upgrading someone within your own stable, if you like. So if you're taking them from a known database to a known database, it might be not necessarily an update, but a full upgrade. Then that's a little bit more straightforward. But generally, data migration is really difficult. It's a really difficult part of the process. So again, people see the value in paying a fee up front for that. As I said, training, consultancy. But I think the real stage where service levels become important are kind of post that sort of implementation stage where you're being handed over to a service desk. And how that, that's the most crucial part, I think, of what we do. You've got to have great product, you've got to implement it well, you've got to migrate well, you've got to do all those things, but really what you have to do well is make sure that your service desk has solid KPIs that you're measuring that service desk against constantly. Because as a client, as an agent, as a lettings agent, estate agent, the minute you've got a problem and you need help, you're potentially in a downtime scenario.
Well, I think that's so important. And I mean, I can think of just once or twice in my sort of career, you get involved with these things, and it's the access to that support that's important to me. Because some of these places, they say, right, well, send an email off, we'll issue a ticket. Once you've got your ticket number, let it, I just want to talk to somebody,
Absolutely, but you also want those people to be readily available, which is difficult to deliver. So we have a ticketing system, but for instance, so our January stats, and this is how closely we look at them because it's so important to us. We had 1,098 support tickets raised in January, for example. So within those 1,098 support tickets, we know that all the bugs and errors, any bugs and errors, those questions were answered within 5 to 6 minutes. Now that's a callback.
Right.
So you log a ticket and then you get a callback within 5 to 6 minutes. If it's let's call it a business critical issue. But any non-business critical issue is only 12 minutes. So you're getting a callback within 12 minutes from an employed person based within our organisation who helps you with your problem.
Not 3,000 miles away. And
wherever they're based these days, it actually is not as important as it turns out post-pandemic. But certainly, we all our guys are employed by us, trained by us, and those KPIs are really important because at the end of every support call that we complete, we ask people to give us a review, which is quite a dangerous thing. So if someone rings the support desk, they've generally got a problem.
Yes.
But again,
not in the best of moods.
Exactly. So it's hard to get people to give a review because they just want to get on with their day. They just want to have their problem resolved, move on. But again, we monitor all those reviews. We had 43 in January, for example, 9.95 out of 10 satisfaction score, which is unbelievable and a real kind of testimony to the hard work those guys do and how well they do their job as well. So it's I think ask about service levels. I think would be my answer. Ask your potential provider, or if you're in procurement stage, ask them, what are your KPIs? How long does it take to answer a call? How long does the resolution to that call take? It's just those sorts of questions. Doing your homework will probably save you making a mistake.
Out of that, say 1,000 tickets that you got, how many are defective use items as opposed to blips in the software?
The vast majority are, how do I?
Right. How
could I? I've done this. Why has that happened? It's relatively small sort of bugs and errors because we go through such a a heavy testing protocol before we release. That's not to say we don't have bugs and errors. We do. All software companies do. You talked about Apple a minute ago. They have glitches. If they're having glitches, then it's the rest of us are definitely going to have one or two glitches. But usually it comes down to it might be a new member of staff who hasn't had enough training yet. But again, that's not really what a technical support contract is there for. But it's what we deliver ultimately is help and assistance and guidance and getting people back into their daily sort of workload.
It really has to be a total package that works, doesn't it? Absolutely total.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that, Richard. Carly, do you know, I'm just reading this question. I know somebody who's got a situation similar to this, so I should be quite interested in your answer. I have some fairly distant relatives that, through a rapid sale of their home, are currently without anywhere to live. I have a fairly large house and could put them up. They have offered to pay rent, and to be honest, I could do with the income at this time. However, I would not want this arrangement to turn into something I couldn't just terminate as and when I required to do so. I've recently been advised to exercise caution as taking rent may create an ongoing tenancy. Can the experts provide any advice, please?
Yeah, interesting one. Doesn't say whether he's living in the property or not, and whether he's intending to rent out the rest of the property. If he's living in the property and they're moving in with him, then that's quite straightforward. You create a license, so they won't have the benefit of protection from eviction, that sort of thing. You're not creating an assured short hold tenancy. If they move in with you and they're paying rent, that's quite easy to terminate.
Does the level of rent make any difference?
On a license, no, it's fine. It's essentially a lodger's agreement. What you have to be careful is whatever it has to be true to the facts. So I've seen it happen, people draft a lodger's agreement and say the landlord's living there, but actually when you do a bit of digging, the landlord was never living there and it was a tenancy. So you have to look at what actually is happening in those particular circumstances. If the landlord's not there and it's a property that they're renting, on the basis of their family, you could argue there was no intention to create a legal relationship. But if they're pretty distant family, I think that's risky grounds. And if they're in there with exclusive use and occupation of the property, and they have control of the property, then and you're taking rent, then you will have deemed to create a tenancy. So yes, they'd have protection. You'd have to go through the normal routes of Section 21, Section 8.
For the minute,
yeah. And you'd hope with family members that you could agree a surrender when it comes to it, and you've ironed all of these issues out. But yeah, you need to be careful. I mean, the other option, if the landlord's not living in there, is perhaps looking at it as a short-term holiday let. But again, it must be a short-term holiday let. So, are you going in and providing cleaning? Are you changing the towels? That sort of thing.
Is there a time limit on a holiday let?
Like I say, they'll look at all of the circumstances. So, it's not necessarily just on timing, but if you start to creep into the 6 months to 12 months, then, it's a bit iffy. But it's sort of the additional things like, are you going in there and providing cleaning, the services? It's very different. It's the exclusive use and occupation of the property.
So if I summarise that, the simple answer is if the person is actually living there, invites their relatives in, it's fairly straightforward to just do a simple one-pager agreement, isn't it?
Still document it.
Okay, but if you're not living there, then the advice is right, watch out.
Watch out and consider trying to create a short-term holiday let situation.
Okay, that's very good. You got anything to add to that, Richard?
No, not my area of expertise, to be honest, short lets, but I would suggest make sure you understand what your tax position is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a very good point. Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to thank you both very much indeed for your contribution today. Carly, Richard, thank you very much indeed. I'm Stephen Galpin. Join me again next time on Property Question Time.